All right. Today I've got Jared Maynard with me, a fellow PT. If I can say that yet, I'm not quite there, but on my way. Uh, Powerlifter, I am there, so fellow powerlifter, coach, uh, rehab specialist, I would say right now, dad, athlete, just all the titles for you.
All the things.
Yeah,
Uh, Appreciate it, Bryant, man. Thanks for bringing me
sure,
on. And
absolutely.
thanks for bearing with me because we've been trying to get this lined up for a hot minute. We finally made it happen.
You know, time zones, schedules, everything gets in the way of good times.
It's a whole thing, but
Yeah,
the stars aligned, and here we are.
yep. And your coaching service is Unbreakable Strength, is that right?
Used to be, yeah,
Used to
and
be.
we'll probably get into it. Now it's Rebuild Stronger because I've
Rebuild
merged
Strength.
Unbreakable Strength with my now business partner, John Flagg, who's also a fellow coach and powerlifter and
Nice.
clinician. So Rebuild Stronger, that name stays, and we've essentially formed like I guess this is the coaching equivalent of a super group, the
Yeah,
musical super group. So
yeah,
that's how I'm looking at it anyway.
that's nice. Yeah, the Temple of the Dog over here.
That's right. That's right.
So, can you give us a little bit of a background of your journey into physical therapy first? Because I think that probably came a little before where you're at now.
You totally. So going back to probably high school, it definitely was high school, maybe a little bit before that. The big question of what do you want to do after school or where do you want to go to university and what do you want to study, all oriented towards like what do you want to do. I wanted to be a doctor. And this was probably mid to late high school. And then upon realizing how much schooling and time that actually took, I realized my heart wasn't in it enough to really stand a chance at getting through undergrad and med school and residency and all that. So the next the next routes that seemed like they fit were physiotherapy, chiropractic, or even high school teaching. Because I had a couple of really impactful high school teachers that I was grateful to have. They made a lasting impression on me. So, as far as like the healthcare route, physio and chiropractic were kind of the things that stood out. And then I went out, I shadowed a couple of physios in a pretty standard outpatient orthopedic kind of clinic. I liked what I saw. I thought that was pretty cool to be able to work with patients, be able to be immersed in healthcare and science and like help people feel better, deal with their injuries, all that stuff. So I decided on that route. And then that led me to study kinesiology and for my undergrad, and then pursue PT school after that with a year in between because first time I applied, nobody took me in. Second time I got one yes, which is all I needed.
That's all you
So
need.
so that's kind of what started me off in the PT direction.
Nice. Were you in athletics at all before
I was, yeah.
that?
So for going back to my childhood, I was not an athletic kid. I wasn't given to it very naturally. So my parents were really trying to find something that I would take to because I'd be in the basement during like beautiful summer days, just watching TV, and they wanted me to go and be active and do something productive that way. So tried a bunch of things, basketball, tennis lessons, a whole bunch of other stuff. And the first thing that actually stuck was martial arts.
Oh,
So kung fu was the thing, and stuck with that for about 3 years, and then just stopped. It was kind of an anticlimactic, unceremonious stoppage. But then we had a family movie night tradition. Friday nights we'd pile in the family room and put on some movie to watch together. So Remember the Titans was on cue one Friday, and only my dad had played football. So we had to stop during each game sequence like multiple times and ask like, Dad, are we happy about what just happened? What actually did just happen? Can you explain this? But watching that movie was the thing that made me want to play football. So signed up for a summertime football camp, and then I went up for my school team. This would have been my junior year. No, excuse me, sophomore year, and played for 3 seasons. And yeah, once we reached this era of finding something or some things that I enjoyed doing physically, that also I think bolstered my direction into like healthcare, and then more specifically into PT, just because I never had, thankfully, I never had really big injuries to deal with. I had a hairline fracture once in my fifth metacarpal from Kung Fu because I hit my instructor in the face with a glove, but hit with the wrong knuckle. We were
Yeah.
sparring, it was fine.
Yeah.
But like that was the extent of the injuries. Didn't really get too many things through football, but it was still really appealing to be able to, help people stay active, stay athletic, and even return back to some level of function. So that played into the decision a bit.
Yeah. That's normally I feel like the direction of kinesiology, exercise science. And now, like, there's 38 people in my class, and 35 of us are kinesiology, exercise science majors. So,
Yeah, it seems to be the biggest, biggest base and a pretty typical or a common path, and
yes.
it seems to also have the usefulness in giving a good breadth of directions people can go into. Most people, as you've mentioned, as I found for my kin class, like 80% of us were trying to get into the same PT schools, which,
Yeah.
made for some competition for sure. But
Yeah.
I also know people with kin degrees who went into like consulting and like all their very, very varied fields.
Yeah. It is, I mean, it's not one of the easier degrees, but you still can go do a lot with it. Like, it does open a lot of doors. It's not as niche as it seems sometimes. And then, how did you find powerlifting along the way?
Yeah. So my powerlifting journey began with the end of football. So played
Okay.
for 3 seasons, and between football seasons through the rest of the academic year, I didn't really do much. Didn't do much until the summer between my junior season and my senior season because the coaches did fitness testing at the end of our season, and the arrangement was we had to come back during summer camp, and we had to be better than what we tested at. And if we were better, we got to play. If we weren't better, we didn't get to play. It wasn't quantified by how much we had to get better, but they set that standard for us. So I would start lifting in my parents' basement with the equipment that they had, and really that was like based off of like a bodybuilding book that my dad was fond of, and I was just trying to get a little bigger, a little stronger for the football field. And then at the end of the senior season, now suddenly I needed something to do with my time for 5 days a week for 2 hours at a time.
Yeah.
So just kind of kept up with the lifting that I'd started in that summertime prep phase. And then following high school, getting into university, I was a commuter student. So I lived about 2 hours away by bus from my university campus. So that meant that if I wasn't in class and if I wasn't in the gym, I was on the bus either going to school or going back home. So yeah, the gym became one of like the 2 or 3 places that I would go when on campus, and just really training for more aesthetics than anything. Aesthetics, and I knew the health benefits and all that, but wanted to get bigger and leaner and all of this. So at the end of undergrad, this is 2012, which is a time when like natural bodybuilding was kind of having a renaissance, especially online on YouTube. So I remember watching people like Omar Isuf, who I had the pleasure of coming back on the Iron Culture podcast with for the second time recently. But Omar Isuf, Matt Ogus, Chris Jones, and I just am dating myself. But if anybody knows the YouTube fitness scene in like 2012, this should bring back big waves of nostalgia. So I wanted to get into natural bodybuilding. Dr. Eric Helms, also from 3DMJ and Iron Culture podcast, I became aware of 3DMJ at this time, and or around this time. So figured, all right, natural bodybuilding. Let's freaking make this happen. And signed up with a coach. This leads to about a 2 or 3 year period where I find out that for me at that time, bodybuilding is not a good match due to a couple of reasons. One, the coach that I had fucking sucks. From a Not from a technical knowledge standpoint, like he had a slew of results to speak of, but from a communication standpoint and from in my estimation, being an actually good coach, absolutely abysmal. Led to quite a lot of issues that led to some serious psychological stuff that I had to work through at the time. Also, I was dealing with some pretty disordered eating. So, never diagnosed formally as having an eating disorder, but definitely in a binge cycle facilitated by the necessity of like being so focused on the minutia of nutrition, trying to get really lean. And I just wasn't ready for it. I don't know if I'll ever really be ready to get to that level. But again, people like Dr. Eric Helms and the 3DMJ team talk about the necessity of having these conversations with people who want to get into bodybuilding early to try to help guide people and empower them to make good decisions. And for me, trying to force this, it came to a head and I realized like this was really taking a toll on my mental health, my physical health, and just competing in bodybuilding wasn't a thing that I was going to pursue anymore. I never ended up competing. I got fairly lean at one point. But then after breaking up with bodybuilding, I'm in this space where I'm going to keep training because I need the gym. It's an anchor. It's part of what I do and who I am. And then that's where powerlifting becomes essentially like the rebound relationship where I start here. Well, I've known about powerlifting before, but now I start looking at it a little bit more seriously, seeing people like Chad Wesley Smith, seeing people like Brandon Lilly. These are just some of the biggest influences that I came across early. And I thought, all right, this feels like a better match because now we're not talking about a sport where, if you end up being competitive, you're up on stage and you're being judged based on your aesthetics and how good you look compared to the next guy. This is more objective. Granted, there's still subjectivity for sure, but these are the standards of the lifts. Did you do them according to standard? Yes, no. And it didn't require me to be super lean. Like it was something that I could just focus on getting stronger in. So that was really appealing. That started me off on the powerlifting road 2014. So that would have been between first and second year of PT school for me. And I've stayed with it ever since. Made plenty of mistakes and done plenty of stupid shit along the way, which now part of my hope is to save people from the time and headache and expense of that same sort of stuff. But love powerlifting. It's very much a good fit for me. It's changed me in a lot of positive ways. I can't think of it changing me for any negative ways that I've seen so far. And it actually, unexpectedly played a huge role in helping me get through the most dire portion of my life, which was getting really sick last year, which, we might get into. But being strong enough helped me survive the IC.
Yeah, I think people don't put enough weight into being able to lift weight, like in general, general fitness or powerlifting, having that background going into anything unexpected like you had is a real benefit.
Huge benefit.